Bitwig as a DAW has everything you need to make music, and I have covered many of the features in different videos. So today it's time to explore every synthesizer that Bitwig offers. With that said, let's start with the simple synthesizer on Bitwig. This is the organ. If you don't know, the way an organ works is by adding different harmonics. As with any waveform, with more harmonics we have a richer sound. On Bitwig's organ you can put up to 9 harmonics, including the fundamental. You can also change the waveforms. We just listen to Reid, this is pure, and this is full. We have controls for the pitch and the glide, and for the attack and release. And that's it. And of course, Bitwig always invites to exploration with all the possibilities for sound design. The next synthesizer is the Polysynth, personally one of my favorites, because how simple it is and how big the sounds can get. One thing I recommend is that you watch my video on how to build mega synthesizers on Bitwig, because there I do a deep dive on how to put effects, note effects, and modulation on every synthesizer. This is a dual oscillator subtractive synthesizer, and I think it's a bit analog inspired. Both oscillators are the same. You can morph the shape with this knob from square, sawtooth to double sawtooth. You also can add an octave below a square wave. You cannot sync one oscillator to the other, but you have this digital syncing. On the bottom you can change octaves, change the pulse width, the same for the sub, make the waveform retrigger, and add unison voices. Finally, you can pan each oscillator. On this other section you can mix both oscillators, add some noise, and apply FM to the filter. As you can see, the filter is right here. You can select the type of filter with this selector. You can select the key tracking and select the amount of modulation from the filter envelope generator. We also have a high-pass filter, and here at the bottom we can change the global pitch, add some glide, and we can even add a bit of feedback. Now we have two more features that make this a bit more complex. One is the way you blend both oscillators. You have mix them with oscillator 2 being negative, and the others which are wipe, amplitude modulation, a mix between both with oscillators 1 polarity, and max. You see that here at the bottom we have a drive knob, which is a pre-filter drive, and that's because the filter has these different distortion types. We have soft clipping and other ways of wavefolding and distortion. This thing is really useful for well, any kind of sound you want, except more cleaner ones because it doesn't have a sine wave. Still, I don't believe that there's a synthesizer for each of the things that you want to do. Decide by yourself on which occasions you want to use the Polysynth. Next one is the FM4. This is a simple FM synthesizer, as simple as FM can get. If you want oscillator 2 to modulate oscillator 1, you have to increase it right here. If you want that oscillator 4 modulates oscillator 2, is right here. On the right you have the mixer, where you can choose the level of each of the oscillators and even some noise. And here we have the modulation amount. This is the modulation sent by that oscillator to the other. So it doesn't matter if we are modulating oscillator 1 by the maximum amount of oscillator 2, this knob will control how much is sent. This gives a much cleaner sweeping. And the numbers here cannot be modulated, but this knob can. As with any FM synthesizer, we can change the pitch of each oscillator on ratios. but we also can change the frequency up to 1 kHz above or below. Continuing with FM, here we have the phase 4, and this is much more advanced. For starters, we don't work only with sine waves, we can actually choose our waveforms. And each waveform will start as a sine wave, but it can be changed with this knob. This time we choose the modulation amount that each oscillator receives with this knob right here, and also the modulation amount it receives from the respective oscillator depending on the color. We have controls for the ratio, but also for the semitones. And we can offset the frequency up to 27 Hz. Honestly, I like this one much better because it lets you create different relationships and you have more freedom on how you route the modulation. This is the level for each oscillator, and we can even disable the key tracking for each one. Then we can adjust the pitch from 0.01 Hz to almost 20 kHz. We have global controls for the shape and for the mode amount. And finally here we have a filter. We can apply modulation to the filter with each individual oscillator. We also have drive, we can select the mode, apply some feedback. And we can change the amount of modulation from the filter envelope. Okay, the thing with the Polygrid is that it deserves a video on its own, as it has a lot of modules. It basically is a modular environment to make anything you want. You can choose different oscillators and you have different modulation options. To modulate something, you just have to connect the cables, the LFO out to the pitch in. But every modulator has this arrow right here, which lets you modulate virtually anything, even things that are on the device panel. You have everything you need to make a synthesizer. For example, you can add a filter. But as I said, it deserves its own video, because it can get really complex. It even have options to make different types of sequencers. It offers a lot of options and I don't want to oversimplify it anymore, so let's go to the next synthesizer, which is the Polymer. This is actually the grid. Every of the modules that you see here are actually modules of the grid. So it lets you use every oscillator, filter, envelope that are inside of the grid. Even the new scroll. Other instruments are the drum synthesizers, but I already made a video only about that, the same for the drum machine. And we also have the sampler, but again, I already made a video on it. Still, it's so much more than a sampler, it's actually a synthesizer on itself. And other things that you can use to make your own synthesizers are the container devices, for example the XY instrument, same for the instrument layer. And those are the synthesizers that you get on Bitwig. As you can see, they are really versatile, but as I said, the real power comes when you learn how to use the modulators, the effects and the note effects. But what about you? Let me know your opinion in the comments. And also give a like to this video. I hope today's video was informative to you, and if it did, consider subscribing to the channel. I will see you next time, and bye bye.